welcome to Silverstone for the final weekend of the BRSCC Mazda Super Series. And Lyndsay, it's been great to see you again this weekend in front of the camera. Some of the viewers have been asking where you are, and really, you might have noticed that there's a little bit of a battle going on between the pair of us. One of us has been eating the pies, one of us is pregnant. We'll let you guess which one's which. So, Lyndsay, how is the sponsorship with Pucker Pies going?
Oh, thank you so much for that, Lloyd. Honestly, no, it is. This year has been phenomenal for so many reasons, obviously this one being the main one, but I'm surprised I'm still here. I've only got a couple of weeks left, so to actually make it to the final weekend, I am so impressed, but I couldn't let my Mazda guys go. They're my babies, I've been with them from the beginning. I wanted to make sure they were going to bring it home and do me justice.
And the Super Series this weekend, it's going to be a close battle. Brian Chandler on pole for the first race. Can he win all three races?
Oh, it's Brian. He knows what he's doing. He's been Mazda MX-5 championship winner before. And he's doing most of the cars that are in this championship. So by all means, he's going to go out and he's going to just have some fun, to be honest. But he always likes to add that little bit of spice. So there's going to be something up his sleeves, I know it.
Well, that's what we're going to hope to see over the rest of the weekend. It's over to our commentary team to take you through the first race.
Thanks, guys, and best of luck, Lyndsay, to you over the winter. Hopefully we'll see you back again at the racetrack next season. Well, for the final time this year, the MX-5 Super Series is about to burst into life with Brian Chandler and Joe Marshall-Burks on the front row together, Matt Pickford and James Cossins sharing row 2. Then Patrick Collins and Jeremy Cook, the two Kells, Darren and James, share the 4th row, ahead of Clyde Powells and Simon Fleet. Declan Lee and Adam Rowlandson are on row 6, Simon Hutchings and George Grant on the 7th row, ahead of David O'Reilly, Javier Brook, Liz Walton, Russ Lyndsay and Jim Hart to round out the 19 runners. Just as we saw at the end of 2018, the final round of the championship is arguably the best supported with a 19-car grid here, set to do battle on the always entertaining Silverstone International circuit. Big grid of cars, the final meeting of the year about to get underway. Then the lights go out, away we go, and a good start made by Brian Chandler from the outside of row number 1. He looks like he'll get the lead down to the first corner. Good start initially made by the blue car. That's James Cossins making his first appearance of the year. I think he will just have to settle back in line in 4th, and there the two Kells. The orange number 3 is Darren Kell, father Kell, ahead of his son James, the green car behind. Good to see those two back out here at the end of the year. Into the first braking point, then into the right-hander at Village. Chandler leading the way, James Kell around the outside, then battling away with the silver number 77 of Jeremy Crook. George Grant a bit sideways, Russ Lyndsay almost gets into the back of him. Those are two drivers we've seen regularly competing in the MX-5 Super Cup this year. It looks as though the majority of the field, in fact all of the field hopefully, have got through the first sequence of corners in one piece. We're on board Simon Hutchings now, the number 37 car, and he qualified 13th. We might have expected to see him a little bit further up the order than that, but it looks like he's already making progress, pulling away from the side-by-side battle behind him. Speaking of side-by-side, Matt Pickford challenging Joe Marshall-Burks here around the outside at Stowe Corner. That's a brave move to make, but if he can hang on around the outside, it buys him a ticket to the inside of Vale, and that's exactly what he's done. Pickford's gone through into second position then, and Joe Marshall-Burks, who, if memory serves, we last saw out at the season opener at Brands Hatch on the Indy circuit at the start of the year, is demoted down to 3rd position on his return to the MX-5 Super Series. But Joe Marshall-Burks, like several other drivers on the grid, have been away sampling other forms of motor racing throughout the season. 3 wide coming out of club to complete the opening lap there further back. Holds on to 4th place. This is allowing Cossins to make a break. It's brought Patrick Collins now right onto their tail. And the 4 of them descend upon Vale once again. Pretty much as close can be. James Kell seems to have had the better exit from the first part of club, and then this flat-out second element is still significant, because if you get a bit sideways through there, or if you hit that curb, momentum right the way across this start-finish drag, and it is quite a long drag into Abbey Corner. As we've seen, it's difficult, although not impossible, to execute an overtake into that first turn. So as James Cossins now got one hand on that 3rd place trophy, it looks like he might do. He's getting away from Marshall-Burks and Kell now. Now that he's got away from Marshall-Burks, he's quite happy for Joe to stay in 4th position, because that will keep the very rapid James Kell from becoming an issue in the latter stages of the race. James, remember, has come up from 8th on the grid to 5th already. Cossins didn't get a particularly good exit onto the Hanger Straight, so once again, just as he started to pull away, Mistake comes along and punches them all back together again. Seemingly he's feeling the pressure now, having got into a podium place in his first ever race in the series. that maybe is just starting to allow a few mistakes to creep in. So all back together again now as they go through Stowe Corner, down towards the braking zone at Vale. Are we going to see any overtaking here? James Kell looks the man most likely to make a move, but he's not close enough. So the stairs they are: Cossins, Marshall Burks, Kell and Collins. 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th respectively then. Out of Club Corner. Brian Chandler, by the way, still leads the race from Matt Pickford's 2nd, and that gap is just starting to creep up a little bit now, so it looks as though Chandler has more or less got this one in the bag. We're on to the final lap of racing now as well. All eyes very much still on this 3rd place battle, and then also another quartet of cars look to watch out for behind. This is 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th position, and it's Clive Powell, I think, that's in 6th at the moment, ahead of Simon Fleet. So Powell's has gained another spot now on this charge up the order. Clive Powell's ready to start. He started 9th, so he's gained a few positions. Simon Fleet then right behind him, then number 37, which is Simon Hutchings. At the back of the group now, don't they? I think it's 77, isn't it? Jeremy Crook, who has been one of the big losers here, having started 6th. He's now towards the tail end of the top 10. Great scraps raging here right the way through the order. Nice to see, as I said at the start of the race, a big grid of cars this weekend for the MX-5 Super Series. This, though, is the man at the front of it. He was at the front of the grid, and he's about to be on the top step of the podium. Brian Chandler coming through to take another MX-5 Super Series victory. This time, it takes place at Silverstone. Out of the final corner he comes, and having withstood that early pressure from Matt Pickford, Brian Chandler is able to get the race victory, but not by a huge margin, it must be said. 2.1 seconds in the end is all that he had in hand over Matt Pickford in 2nd position, and they're about 10 seconds or so ahead of that 3rd place squabble. Here is confirmation of how that finished then, with Chandler the winner, 2nd place going to Pickford, 3rd position for Cossins, and Marshall Burks 4th, with Kell 5th and Collins 6th. They stayed as they were. Then it was Powell, Fleet, Crook and Declan Lee, because Simon Hutchings was given a 12-second time penalty, a driving standards penalty after the race. That dropped him down to 12th position on the final result. Liz Walton rounds out the field. All 19 starters, though, got to the end, and it was a really, really good race from all of them.
Brian, congratulations on your win. Looked like you were getting a bit lonely out there at the front and slowing down to let Matt catch up, have a bit of fun.
I wish. No, he was right on my bum. I was actually surprised. I kind of thought that I would go away, and he just stayed there lap after lap after lap. Yeah, I almost thought that he was going to have me, which I wouldn't like in my garage. But yeah, he drove really, really well. So yeah, he done good.
With the cars ready to go out for the 2nd race this weekend in the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Super Series. Brian Chandler starts on pole position, but the conditions out there this morning are going to be very tricky. Wet track, but the sun is out, so it's going to dry very quickly. Who knows what setup these guys are going to be using today. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, particularly if Brian and Matt Pickford's battle continues from yesterday. It's over to our commentary team to take you through all of the action.
Yeah, thanks, Lloyd. Well, that was a fascinating battle yesterday, and with this now added element of changing weather thrown into the mix, it could be even more entertaining today. The grid then based on the results from yesterday's race, so it's Chandler and Pickford row 1, Cossins and Marshall Burks row 2, then Collins, Powell, Fleet and Crook. On the 4th row, Declan Lee and Darren Kell share the 5th row ahead of Simon Hutchings and George Grant. Adam Rowlandson and David O'Reilly are next, then Russ Lyndsay and Javier Brook, whilst Jim Hart, Liz Walton and Cameron Thompson round out the field. Cameron Thompson being a new addition then in that number 5 car for the 2nd race of the weekend. So ready then to go racing once again here on a damp Silverstone International circuit. What's going to happen? Who will come out on top in these slippery conditions? Who's got the best setup? Who's got the best confidence in the wet? Well, let's find out. 20 minutes of racing get underway. With a good start made by Chandler again from the outside of row 1, and James Cossins is away well once again in that blue car, going to the outside of Chandler for the race lead into the 1st corner. Surely that won't work. The grip is on the outside, but he has to settle in line in 2nd place. That means that he's got himself ahead of yesterday's runner-up Matt Pickford already, who is busy fending everybody else off in 3rd position. Cossins alongside Chandler for the lead into the braking zone at Village. He still can't quite go around the outside. Pickford's got 3rd, then Marshall Burks and George Grant into a spin through the right-hander. Contact presumably from somebody behind. Didn't quite catch who, but he's left, well, not pointing the wrong way, but stationary and possibly with a stalled engine. On board with the race leader, though, looking back at James Cossins, who showed potential for race-winning pace yesterday, and now this morning is looking to try and deliver on that. He's almost pushing Chandler down the Hanger Straight, but James Cossins, with significantly less experience than Brian Chandler, is he going to be able to use the wet conditions to his advantage to find a way past? Well, we'll have to wait and see, I suppose. There's Joe Marshall-Burks. He's got Clyde Powell's up the inside and a sideways Patrick Collins in front of him, and that might allow Powell's past the pair of them. How did that one settle out? This is for third place, and no, fourth place, I think I'm right in saying, and it's Marshall-Burks, I think. Hard to see, isn't it, with the low sunlight this morning glinting off the wet circuit. But yeah, Marshall-Burks has got fourth, Powell's fifth, and then Collins, and then James Cossins, is that not? So what's happened to James? Because that's the number 24 car, I think. No, it's Simon Fleet, excuse me. It's the other pale blue car. So Simon Fleet is where he should be. James Cossins is also where he should be, which is towards the sharp end and getting away from the rest of the pack now, those top two. Pickford third, then Marshall-Burks, Powell's, Collins, Fleet. The rest all streaming through behind. Brian Chandler, meanwhile, on the final, or maybe not the final lap of the race, he might be able to squeeze one more in, but he's getting towards the end of the race. The BC Cars driver with an even bigger margin this time around than he enjoyed in race one. He's got away from James Cossins to the tune of about 4.5 seconds, and Cossins in turn is about 8 seconds ahead of Joe Marshall-Burks in third, who's a phenomenal 20 seconds ahead of Matt Pickford in fourth. So the top four really have had fairly calm and quiet and uneventful races. There you can see the gap between the top two. Still impressed by James Cossins in this race, though. Third in race one, second in race two, and that, oh, is Hutchins. That's number 37, Simon Hutchins, that's got around through the final corner. See whether that was contact induced or whether it was self-inflicted, but either way that will cost him positions because he was only just in front of the Darren Keller Declan Lee pair, so he'll lose at least 2 places, maybe another one to David O'Reilly. So yeah, James Cossins impressing me this weekend. Third in race one, second in race two, and he'll be aiming for the top step of the podium in race three, there's no doubt about that. But Brian Chandler looks as though he's about to take a double race victory, I think, this weekend. He comes across the start-finish line, and on to the final lap of the race now. So just 1.85 miles separate Brian Chandler from another victory, second victory of the year at, of the day, excuse me, or the weekend I should say, at Silverstone. Having qualified on pole for race one, he led that one all the way, despite the pressure coming from behind from Matt Pickford. And he looks as though he's going to do the same in race two now by an even more comfortable margin over the impressive James Cossins in second, and Joe Marshall-Burks, who has been a little off the pace, it must be said. Off the podium in race one, he's on the podium in race two, but some way off the lead. That gap between first and third is likely to be about 12 or 13 seconds by the flag. So Joe Marshall-Burks, who we've seen regular front runner this year, just struggling a little bit, maybe particularly in the wet conditions today. But, I think in race one he was about 13 seconds off the lead, so actually his pace compared to Chandler pretty equal across the two races. But anyway, Chandler heads down into Vale for the final time and hits the brakes, turns through the left-hander under absolutely no pressure on this occasion. Chandler looks as though he's going to come through victorious at the end of the second race of the weekend here at Silverstone. He won in the dry yesterday from pole. Today he wins from pole position in the very damp and greasy conditions, but it is still a win for Brian Chandler, with James Cossins coming home in second position. Some way back in the end, 4.14 seconds was the margin of victory at the flag. Very, very solid drive there from Cossins nonetheless. Marshall-Burks comes home third, and eventually he's 8.8 seconds further back. With Matt Pickford due shortly in fourth position, although I say shortly, he's about 20 odd seconds behind the next car's back marker, and then eventually Pickford will come home in fourth. There's confirmation of the result then. Chandler, Cossins, Marshall-Burks, Pickford and Collins the top five, Clyde Powell sixth, Simon Fleet seventh, Jeremy Crook eighth, Xavier Brook ninth, and Adam Rowlandson to round out the top 10. Darren Keller and Declan Lee 11th and 12th respectively, ahead of David O'Reilly, George Grant and Simon Hutchings. Russ Lyndsay, Cameron Thompson were 16th and 17th.
Brian, congratulations, second win this weekend. It was good fun.
Yeah, it was tricky, that one. the boys in the garage set the car up awesomely. I didn't really know what to do with it because this place is really, really grippy in the wet, as we found out Friday. So yeah, we didn't want to go proper wet, but didn't want to go dry. So I think they went somewhere in between, and it obviously worked. So yeah, well done, boys, back at the workshop.
The cars are getting ready to go out for the final race this weekend in the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Super Series. Brian Chandler once again on pole position, but speaking to him in between the races, he feels that second place on the grid man, James Cossins, is going to have a bit of a run at him. James, Brian seems to think you could win this.
Well, I hope so too. That's the plan, mate. I'm on the inside for turn 1, starting in second, so hopefully I'll simply just get straight in the lead at the first corner. That's the plan, and then we'll just sort of drive smart, see how we get on during the race, and hopefully we'll pull away, and hopefully there'll be some action for you guys this time as well.
The track looks a bit drier now than it was earlier on. Is that going to help you?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I've had more running in the dry than the wet in this. I've only really sort of had 2 sessions in the wet in this car and doing a bit in the dry as my whole experience in this car. So in the dry I got a little bit more knowledge, I'm a little bit more comfortable with chucking it into some of the corners and seeing how we get on with that. So dry is good for me.
Excellent. Well, we wish you all the best out there. We're looking forward to that first corner action. Thanks, James. It's over to the commentary team to take you through all of the race.
Well, it's been a hugely impressive debut from Cossins. Can he round it out with a victory? This is his best chance yet. It's a dry circuit again now, and he starts from the inside of row 1 with the double race winner this weekend, Brian Chandler, alongside him on pole. Joe Marshall-Burks and Matt Pickford share the second row ahead of Patrick Collins and Clyde Powells, then Simon Fleet and Jeremy Crook together on row 4. Xavier Brook and Adam Rowlandson round out the top 10 ahead of Darren Kell and Declan Lee. David O'Reilly and George Grant are on row 7, then Simon Hutchings and Russ Lyndsay. Cameron Thompson, Liz Walton and Jim Hart round out the 19 runners. Remarkably, we've had 2 races, not a single retirement either in either of those races, so all of the cars are hopefully going to be out there ready for this final race, which promises to be pretty entertaining, I'd imagine, with the dry conditions playing into the hands maybe of James Cossins and also Matt Pickford, I'd say, who was very rapid in the dry yesterday. Brian Chandler will be tough to beat here from the outside of row 1. He's got the position, the pole position. Can he make the whole shot into turn 1 once again? Let's find out. The red lights go out, and away they go. And a good start made by Cossins from the inside of row 1, and he looks as though he might get the lead. He's got Pickford coming on the inside line as well. 3 wide almost for the lead, and Chandler holds on. Pickford on the inside, and round the outside go Patrick Collins, and is that Clyde Powells? I think it must be. Yes, it is. Contact between Collins and Powells there as they come through Farm Curve, and that really did not play into the hands of either Joe Marshall-Burks or James Cossins. Someone's on the grass in the background, or you can tell it's the last race of the year, can't you? The last day of term vibes are very strong at the moment. There's more contact there between Powells and Collins. And James Cossins left with it all to do now on the inside line going into the Chapel corner, and he loses another spot now to Xavier Brook going onto the Hanger straight. Not going according to plan so far then for the rapid newcomer. As it is at the front of the field, it's situation normal, at least as it was in race 1 with Chandler versus Pickford, but Matt Pickford is having a go. In fact, I think he's been waved through, is he, by Brian Chandler? More contact between Collins and Powells now as they go down the Hanger straight, and this is starting to get a little bit silly, you'd have to say. James Cossins looking to try and pick up the pieces if and when it all goes wrong in front of him. Simon Fleet behind us. It's all going on this opening lap, and they're going to come through at the end of the first lap in nothing like the order in which they started it, I don't think. Did Pickford get the lead? And if so, was he handed the lead by Brian Chandler? If that's the case, that's very interesting, isn't it? Because Chandler, yeah, look, you see that Pickford is in front. Chandler must be planning to work with Pickford here and push him around the circuit to try and maybe pull away from the rest of the field, which at the moment is exactly what they're doing. 3rd place for Powells, 4th Collins, 5th Marshall-Burks by the looks of it. And then was that Cossins or was it Simon Fleet next up? Didn't quite spot which of the blue cars it was. It is Cossins, who now goes inside of Patrick Collins into Village Corner. Yellow flag zone then at Stowe, past the stricken car of Jim Hart. Dropped down through Vale and Club. Matt Pickford under all sorts of pressure now from Chandler, who had a much better run through there, so all of a sudden that 1 second lead that Pickford had has evaporated, and they're going on to the final lap of the race, the final lap of the season now then, between Matt Pickford and Brian Chandler. And Brian Chandler, if he can, will like to try and get this victory away, or is Matt Pickford going to be able to get his first win of the year in the last race of the year? Well, there are a couple of key places that he needs to defend. This is one of them, into Village. He does go to the inside line, Chandler goes to the outside. That means that Chandler will be quicker off the corner in theory, or especially since Pickford runs a bit wide, so Chandler gets right back onto his tail again, but no real gain made there. All Pickford's wide again, but neither of them are anywhere near the apex through Chapel. And so as they go onto the back straight, I don't think either of them really had a big advantage there either. But Chandler is in the slipstream now. James Cossins is hoping and praying that they tangle and hand him a race victory on a plate. I don't think that will happen. Or will it? I don't know, because Chandler's going to be close enough to have a go here, I think, into Stowe if he wants to. He stays resolutely in the wheel tracks of the race leader, though. So if the move is going to come, it will be down into the braking zone at Vale. But is Chandler going to be close enough? Has a bit of a slide mid-corner, but he's carried good speed off the turn. Pickford will have to cover the inside line, which he will not, actually. Doesn't feel the need to cover. So he's got some good confidence under braking, and with good reason, because he makes the corner first. And I don't think that Brian Chandler is going to be able to do this now, so it's not going to be the hat-trick for the BC Cars driver. It's going to be a 2 wins and a second place for Chandler, because the victory in the final race of the season goes to Matt Pickford. Fantastic stuff by a quarter of a second. He hangs on with Brian Chandler in second place. James Cossins comes home in third. Clive Powells will retain fourth, then keeps Joe Marshall-Burks at bay to the flag, but Joe will round out the top 5 finishers after what was a fantastic final race of the year. Brilliant stuff from the MX-5 Super Series. We don't know exactly what the plan is for next season, whether or not this grid might merge once again with the MX-5 Super Cup, as some have suggested it may. But either way, throughout this year and last year, the Super Series has kept us thoroughly entertained. Confirmation of the result then. Pickford wins it, Chandler second, and Costons back on the podium in all 3 races. Clive Powells and Joe Marshall-Burks 4th and 5th, with Patrick Collins 6th and Adam Rowland up to 7th, ahead of Simon Fleet, Jeremy Crook and Darren Kell. He got the better of Declan Lee by less than a quarter of a second that time, ahead of Xavier Brook and Simon Hutchings. Once again though, all 19 get to the flag.
Matt, well done on your victory. Some tough racing out there, particularly around the start.
It was. I got a great start. P4 in this place is a great place to start from, because it actually puts you more close to the wall and gives you that great line for turn 1. So I think by turn 1 I got a great start and was in P2. I took Brian going into, I think, the complex up at the top. He quickly got me again, but I just stayed in his toe. And yeah, it was very close. I think we managed to gap the field quite a bit. And then towards the end, he missed a gear going onto the hanger straight, and I just got the toe and got past him. So that was great, great opportunity.